Sveiki gerbėmieji.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Seimas, guests, Your Excellency Ambassador, Madam Ambassador, Mr. Ambassador. It's a pleasure to welcome you all here. Our today's discussion is devoted to Europe Day. We celebrated it yesterday in one or another way. If we had met here, let's say 2 years ago, the celebration itself would have been different and a more routine one, but the war in Ukraine has changed both our moods and our agendas. Therefore, the understanding that the European Union was established not only for the renovation of multi-blocks or for renovations, but to ensure peace in our continent, shows that the war in Ukraine is a symbol of fragility. The history is repeating itself with the most primitive and brutal forms. Today's topic is focused towards future, and whenever we talk about challenges arising from the ever-changing world and the war in Ukraine, the European Union has had a long debate as to whether competitive enough our community is, and whether or not there is too much regulation at the EU level. I remember my colleague saying, let's look at China and the standards it has adopted, let's say, towards human rights and environment. And it seems that we have imposed on ourselves much stricter regulations. We therefore might lose competitiveness. Values are, of course, the most important thing for us. Therefore, we are focused towards sustainable and innovative growth. Therefore, today, we're going to speak about our legal regulation, whether it is sufficient or not. I do hope that today we're going to speak about the things that are important for the common market, for the single market. We'll talk about supply chains, about the supply of strategic resources. I know that in the European Union there is a conviction that we have to become autonomous rather than remain dependent on other sources from, let's say, third countries that have very little to do with the democracy and democratic values. Therefore, those challenges do exist. We are aware of them, but we are also aware of the possibilities for the state of Lithuania and for the European Union to take steps further and to change the situation. Today's conference consists of two parts, and I'm very grateful to those who have agreed to share their expert insights into the topics. And I hope that the members of the Seimas of the Republic of Lithuania and those who are watching us online will take this conference as a chance to learn something new. And now I'd like to give the floor to Ambassador of the Kingdom of Sweden to the Republic of Lithuania. Sweden is currently presiding the EU Council.
Thank you very much. Deputy Speaker, Vice Ministers, members of Seimas and other distinguished guests, I'm very pleased to have the honor to speak to you today on this important topic of sustainable investments and developments in the financial technologies. And I'm, of course, also very happy that it's taking place during the Swedish EU presidency. We are now two-thirds, or a bit more than two-thirds down the way of our presidency, and we are sort of approaching the end of our presidency. And I must say that we feel very pleased with the strong support that we have from Lithuania We are cooperating closely, and we are also like-minded in many areas. I would say most of the EU agendas, we're finding ourselves being like-minded, and we are very grateful for having this close cooperation. On top of the EU agenda, as we all know, during this spring, as was the case last year, is of course to stop the Russian aggression and hold Russia accountable for its war of aggression and war crimes committed. And maintaining the EU unity to uphold and strengthen sanctions is, of course, a key area. And of course, here now we have the 11th sanctions package on the table, and that will start to be negotiated. And one important aspect of that is, of course, to address also the problem of circumventions of sanctions. Of course, it's also very important that we continue the strong support and engagement for Ukraine. And here we see the important steps that Ukraine has taken when it comes to accession to the European Union. And we hope that before the summer, the Commission will be able to make an oral report on the progress of Ukraine, and that we can have a positive also decision at the European Council this summer. Economies around the world and the global financial system have been severely affected by Russia's aggression, resulting in high inflation levels, interest rates, and energy prices, which of course has affected many companies and citizens. And it's easy in this context, of course, to focus on the short-term measures to meet the crisis, as well as how to address the EU's short-term competitiveness in the global market. For us, as the Swedish presidency, we see that it's important to also focus on the long-term competitiveness of the European Union, as we see that EU's strength, resilience, welfare, and global standing very much depends on our economic output and sound and open economy based on free competition and private investments. And this spring, this EU single market turns 30 years. And today, I think we understand better than earlier how important it is that the single market also works during crisis periods, which we were very much reminded of course, during the pandemic. So to maintain free movement of goods, services, capital, and people is also very much a cornerstone when it comes to ensuring the EU's resilience. Furthermore, it is imperative that we stay firm on the transition to the green economy in order to safeguard the basis of our economic model for long-term growth. European companies and industries are already leading the green transition in many key areas, and it's important for competitiveness, but also for our security to reduce our dependence on Russia as well as on China. The digital and green transition requires major investments in innovative industries and having the right skill sets in place, as well as the right regulatory framework. And here I would like to underline the importance for investors to have predictable and clear legislation framework in order to operate and manage well. We also need to have in place innovation-friendly regulatory framework and to invest more in research and development and to strengthen the digital single market. Last month, the Council of the European Union and the European Parliament reached a provisional deal on the CHIP Act, which is one of the important pieces of legislation that will support the green and digital transition and strengthen EU resilience. And another very important area here, of course, is the Raw Material Act that has also been agreed. In this green and digital transition, the Swedish government sees the importance of a transatlantic approach, rather than an isolated European strategic autonomy approach. Because, and I think the speaker, you mentioned it very well, we talk very much about the importance of values and norms, as well as global standard setting. And it's when we're working together across the Atlantic that I think we can together ensure that we can uphold those values and norms, as well as the rules-based international world order. That will make Europe in a better position to close the growth and innovation gap between Europe and its global competitors. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Tack så mycket, dear ambassador. Thank you for your thoughts, and really using this opportunity, I would like to thank you and Sweden for a nicely done job. Well, still it's ongoing, presiding EU, but everything that you have done, and especially for your country, to say thank you for your country in constant support for our region, for Ukraine, and what we can say about events that were 30 years ago, that Sweden was among those who helped us and express this friendship the most. So thank you very much. O dabar norėčiau pakviesti.
And now let me give the floor to our friend, Marius Vašela, head of the Lithuanian representation to the European Commission. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, my congratulations on Europe Day. It took place yesterday. We organized it on the City Hall Square. At the same time, Vilnius is marking its 700 years anniversary, and we wanted to remind everyone that already 700 years ago, we wanted to take the Western perspective, and we expressed our will some 30 years ago when voted in a referendum, and 91% of Lithuanian people said yes to the European Union. And now it's high time for Lithuania to show its leadership, and we are doing this. President von der Leyen has mentioned in her State of the Union report said that the knowledge of Eastern Partnership is a huge advantage of this region. Therefore, the whole of Europe should listen to such countries as Lithuania. Therefore, Lithuania's leadership with regard to Ukraine's question is also very important. As I was looking at the agenda of this conference and saw the mention of financial technologies, so let me note that Lithuania is highly experienced in this topic. As I am thinking of the future of the whole the European Union and its competitiveness, I believe that sharing of experience is highly important among EU member states. I know that there are many more topics to be discussed during this conference. The Deputy Speaker has talked about the strategic autonomy, and strategic autonomy indeed is an integral part or another side of the coin of the green transition, because it raises a question as to what should be done with the other resources, not the oil or gas, because we know that we have to reduce dependence from third countries, and many of the EU countries have faced this dependence in the most painful way. We have to ensure that we have those critical resources that are needed for green transition. We all know of the Green Resource Act from the European Commission and other important legislation which shows a new approach of the European Union to economy. It's a geopolitical approach towards economy. Therefore, strategic autonomy is about this geopolitical approach to economy. The fact is that all these things require finances, and it is no coincidence that today we are going to talk about finances. When it comes to finances, we should look at three different dimensions. I think public finances of the EU is the first thing, national finances is the second thing, and private sustainable resources are a third thing.
tam, kad pasiektumėm, jog ES būtų tvarių investicijų lyderė pasaulyje ir ji tokia yra.
The EU is pursuing to become the leader of sustainable funding. So from the programming period from 2021 to 2027, 30% of all the funding should be allocated to all those green projects at the EU level.
Taip pat turime kitą tokią
Moreover, we have yet another measure in the budget, the reconstruction fund, RRF. Some of funding has reached Lithuania already, and it provides very clearly that 37 should be a sustainable investment, while 20% of investment should go to digitalization.
Prie šito viešųjų ES biudžeto.
So this is the way the European Union is trying to manage its green finances, but the efforts of the European Union alone are not enough, are not sufficient.
1% BVP, mes visada galvojam, kad galim viską padaryti, bet iš tikrųjų jisai pakankamai nedidukas visos ES mastu.
The budget is not sufficient for everyone. Therefore, we have to think how we should be dealing with our national green investment. And a month ago, the European Commission has submitted proposals on the reform of the financial rules after the recent financial crisis. I think that the discussion is very timely to speak about that as well, because the question as to how we should reach sustainability goals and defense goals are very relevant, because at the same time we have to ensure fiscal discipline so that every member state could take an individual look at the deficit. I'm not going to dwell deeper, but let me mention the third element, the private investment into sustainability.
Visų mūsų kartu ES kuriamas tokios taksonomijos taisyklės, kurios
These are the taxonomy rules that we create together with the European Union,
kas yra žalios investicijos, o kas
and we
nėra
have to know what green investments are and what is not. There have been quite a lot of discussions because everyone wants to get into that list. We have to be very critical, and we have to ensure that we fund only the things that are good for climate and for environmental matters.
Turėti taksonomiją tik tai, kas iš tikrųjų būtų toksai aukso standartas ir
So we have to look for a golden standard which would allow to develop sustainability. So thank you very much. I'll stop at that. I have mentioned only a few topics from on the part of the European community, and I'm sure that you're going to have very interesting discussions.
Thank you, Marius. We will certainly dive deeper into the topics that you've mentioned in passing. It will be difficult to answer the question on the balance, on maintaining the balance, but I believe that the discussions will help us to better understand the way we want to move forward. Individual approach of member states towards investments and finances is very important. Here we will discuss that. Let us move to the first thematic panel of the discussion, which is sustainability of public finances and investment into green transformation and economic competitiveness. I would like to give the floor to Elius Čivilis, General Manager of Investment Promotion Agency Invest Lithuania, to be the moderator of this panel. Thank you, Madam. Your Excellency Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, we love Sweden very much because Sweden invests into Lithuania a lot, and I hope that this pace will be maintained. I also thank the European Commission that gives us a very correct direction and explains us, well, this is a very wide area. Well, the Green Deal is actually includes 46 different programs, many sectors, and it is all very complicated, but first of all, I would like to give the floor to the Vice Minister of Finance and speak about the public finances in Lithuania. Thank you very much. I thank the chair of the committee, and I thank the Swedish ambassador as well as the head of the European Commission representation in Lithuania. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see my slides on the screen. I will share some points. Well, the topic is very wide. I will not be able to extensively answer all your questions. I will try to look at the situation we're in and the direction that we're moving and the financial discussions on the review of rules and the investment into Green Deal, green transformation, and all important areas on the Lithuanian level. Well, I have several slides on that with figures that will be helpful for you. I have 3 blocks that I would like to touch upon in my presentation. So first of all, is regulation of public finance on the EU level, the review and screening, and finding new balance between the sustainability of public finance and control of public finance and the ability to invest into such important areas as competition. Another block is about the investments that are planned, mostly coming from the EU resources. And the third block is the strategic approach that we are making with different institutions and partners in the area of mobilization of private capital and private funds. First of all, the situation in Lithuania in terms of sustainability of public finance. I happen to present my positions on public finance in different committees of the Seimas. And if you look at the right column, you can see the debt level. And it varies greatly from Greece to Estonia. Lithuania is marked in green, and we see that we are below 40% of the GDP, and this is one of the lowest level of debt on the EU level. In the context of today's discussion, it means that Lithuania as a country has a fiscal area, fiscal space to react to challenges or to respond to strategic challenges. For example, to divert more funds for competitiveness and other areas. I want to underline that this area has to be used very carefully and not abuse it. And now let us move to the EU level in the ECOFIN discussions on the review of the fiscal rules on the EU level. It means the budgeting of every country, including Lithuania. Sustainability of public finance and the need of investment is on the other hand. Very often it might seem that these are two different types of needs, because if we have costs, we have the debt. But this is not true in all the cases. If we have investment and they are prudent, they can increase productivity and competitiveness in the economy, or, for example, strengthen economic resilience for some negative factors or some negative effects. For example, investments into energy can reduce our dependence on external needs for sources. The main challenge on the EU level, in terms of discussions and having in mind the variety and difference of view in different countries, some countries have low debts and some have high debts. We need to find the balance between those countries in order to maintain the debt level on the same level. In April, the renewed package of the European Union was presented. This is a very good average, in my opinion. And one of the main elements means to find the balance between competitiveness and financial sustainability. I will not give in-depth insights into all those proposals on the management of public finance, but I want to give some brief proposal. For example, the Commission wants to strengthen national ownership. It means that countries should draft their own plans that could be coordinated with the European Commission on reducing debts. This means that the debt reduction level or the debt reduction pace is differentiated according to countries in question. This proposal of the Commission is more or less realistic in terms of the implementation. Countries that are most at risk are at a larger focus. This is a positive thing, but we should not forget the countries that have low levels of debts but can become risky countries, for example, if some external shocks happen. Strict enforcement of rules is also proposed. No matter what kind of regime we have to ensure effective enforcement. And the last block is flexibility for investment and structural reform, which would allow member states to extend the period for reducing debt. So this is a default proposal from the Commission, giving 4 years for a member state to draft a plan on different measures to reduce the debt. This period can be extended to 7 years if different kinds of investments are included. For example, if countries want to implement pension reforms or some other decisions, they have more fiscal space for that. until the debt is reduced. This is a good step forward, having in mind that some countries face serious problems, and asking or requiring that these countries reduce their debts without taking any other measures is problematic. Our debt is one of the lowest in the European Union. I mean Lithuania. We will not be drafting the plans on reducing debts. We have to maintain this debt on a low level. Compared to the current regime, if the new system is adopted, countries will have more space for their individual choices on investment, as long as the debt level is maintained or reduced. This gives some additional space for countries as long as they do not reach or do not exceed the 3% of debt level. But this gives some space for action for countries, and this is a positive development. Speaking about the second block, the investment into different areas, green transformation, innovation. It also includes a long-term strategy, national strategy or the national adaptation plan, which envisages the needs for investment. And if we look at point 1 and 6, this requires the largest investment. So this is environment, climate change, science, innovation, and economy. Well, actually, the implementation is the largest problem here. The majority of those funds, as you can see from different colors, comes from the EU pocket. This is not absolutely possible because there is a strategical dependence on EU funding in the long-term period. But in terms of public finances, this is a positive development because the budget deficit level is not increased in this way. As we move forward, speaking about the next period, these are real investment flows in the economy. 1.8 billion euro in Lithuania, which is much bigger than in recent years, as you can see from this chart. And in 2024, 1.2 billion of investment are planned as well. Today, the Commission announced the first payment of funding from the RRF. And a certain flow has already reached Lithuania. This means that very important areas are funded by the European Union. In the pipeline, we also have the new generation Lithuania plan that has to be updated and reviewed. And we hope that our negotiations are successful, and this plan will be increased by 1.8 billion euro. And if we see the areas where these funds are allocated, well, a large part will go to the development of renewable energy resources, green transformation, and a very important area, up to €1 billion will go to greening of industry and development of high value-added production. This is an important sector in Lithuanian economy. And this This actually development or change is based on the current decisions of the European Union to strengthen the economic resilience based on different examples of developments in different jurisdictions, for example, the USA. I would like to give you some more figures about the funds in the period of 2021 to 2027 for green transformation. I will not go into detail here. As you can see that green transformation is a strategically important area for the government. It is important to ensure effective streamlining of these funds into the Lithuanian economy. And this will lead to some positive changes. If we have all these funds, public funding is insufficient here. In the National Energy and Environment Plan shows that some additional 14 billion euros are needed, with 10 billion coming from the public sector or the EU, and the rest will be mobilized from the private sector, which means that we have a funding gap in the market, and this is a reality that we are trying to address by taking steps on the national level. And we have prepared a greening plan. And the logic of this plan is to create the ecosystem that would enable the mobilization of private funds in the ecosystem, in banks and funds, and to divert this money into green projects that would promote a green transformation and green transition. And for this, we need the connection between the projects and the funds. And the lack of data actually is the major problem here. So we need to have a centralized database to contain or to help to find information on specific project and the green level. So that would be a think tank on greening that would ensure the functioning of the ecosystem and inform both the public and the private sector, and also cooperate with the academic community. Other measures include cooperation with different enterprises. This would help to create a functioning ecosystem in the green market and help us meet the green transformation needs. And the green sector might become the vector here. This would be similar to what happened in the financial and technology sector several years ago. Thank you very much. I think that many people took photographs of your slides. It means that this is very relevant. And now I'd like to start the discussion or debate. We have many distinguished guests here who are competent in their area and can share the experience and their opinion. and you are invited to share your opinion through the menti.com portal. Take your smartphones, and enter 17865113 in this portal in the menti.com and take part in our debate and in our poll. And now I'd like to present the participants of our discussion. We have a representative of the ministry. Thank you very much. We have a villa. I hope that we will see her. We have Erika from the Innovation Agency. We have also Paulė and Tomas Digaitis from the consultant company. I think that we are well equipped, and I believe that you really can contribute to this debate. We spoke about the complexity of this topic and many concepts, and very often we are lost in all this. Sometimes we say that green transformation is related to waste. For others, it is related to energy or digitalization. So my first question goes to the audience. Can you express your opinion by agreeing or disagreeing, by rating your answer from 1 to 10? Do you believe that our ambition is in line with the strategy? These are the questions that will help us to illustrate the vision that we have. And I would like to give the floor to the panelists, and let me start from Grete. As a policy maker in the ministry, what is the priority? Is it a priority for the ministry and for the business?
Good afternoon. I'm the advisor of the Minister of the Economy and Innovation. And well, you've mentioned green economy and green transformation. The deepening crisis gives us a signal that we need to make changes in various fields, in particular in industry. Mindaugas in his presentation already talked about many things. And we have to focus on getting rid of CO2. Therefore, the European Union, member states, and Lithuania included, has set a very ambitious target to become a climate-neutral continent by 2050. What does that mean? That means that if we want to become a competitive economy, we have to reform it. We have to reform it to become less polluting. Well, this might seem a recipe from several ingredients, but well, we have to modernize old facilities and equipment. Yesterday, we were in Lithuanian city, town, Utena, in a factory in Utena, and they have equipment that are very energy demanding. Therefore, we have to ensure that they invest sufficiently to replace this old equipment. But as much as we give to our businesses, they still say that we do not give enough. Another ingredient is that we have to reduce hazardous gases, and we need to ensure that we have the technologies for reducing those emissions. And we have investment into this field as well. And to my opinion, there is one area that has been forgotten. It is the circular economy model. We've been used linear economy model for quite many years. We we produce a product, we use the product, and then discard that product, but we know that the resources are not unlimited. Therefore, we have to bring this waste back into the economy and to produce something else from those old things. So this is our priority. We have to strengthen circular economy. Unfortunately, Lithuania is lagging from the EU average, and our circular economy accounts for 4% only. And our objective is to increase this percentage at least by 2 times. We also have 4 very important initiatives in line, and these are priority initiatives. We try to shape our positions with regard to those ecology regulation, green regulation. I think will be key in transforming our industries. We have to ensure that our industries produce with as little of CO2 emissions as possible. So the production lines have to be transformed as well in order to have the products with long life cycle. Elias has provided with several examples. So in the future, we will have the eco-design digital digital pass. It will be crucial for all the companies. The negotiations are taking place very fast, and those green initiatives are being pushed forward, and our undertakings see the situation. That's why the textile producer in Utena, the one that we visited yesterday, also noticed these fast changes, and the representatives of the factory said that their clients already are asking for this digital pass, or despite the fact that the factory does not have it yet. The companies will also have to look at their chains, at their supply chains, and to see whether their partners are producing sustainably. And we also have to prepare a sustainability report. As far as I know, this will deal with several dozens of Lithuanian enterprises. We still don't know how these sustainable reports will be provided. In other important areas is the Net Zero Industry Act. These will bring us closer to achieving the target of climate neutral economy. And since the European Union stresses the need to reduce strategic dependence, therefore we have the Critical Raw Material Act, because the European Union needs to ensure that it has the raw materials that it needs to ensure this green transformation. And I would also like to add on my own behalf that technologies will be those cornerstone things that will change our approach towards industries and green transition. But to do that, we have to achieve change in our mindset. Many things will depend on the people themselves. Let me also mention that when it comes to efficiency and when it comes to CO2 emissions, so chemistry and mineral fertilizers producers are the ones that contribute mostly to CO2 emissions. Therefore, we have provided them with financing to replace their technologies with hydrogen technologies. It is very important to adapt the circular economy principles, despite the fact that it is very difficult. We are still at a very initial transformational stage. Thank you, Grete, for a very comprehensive report, what is being done. But now I'd like to turn to Tomas Digaitis, who is very much on the ground. He's working with companies. So my question is whether companies are truly working towards achieving, towards changing the situation. Yes, the companies are truly seeing the problems related to sustainability that might hinder their development. It's important to stress that the bigger the business, the more they are able to see the horizon. But once you go down to smaller companies that are already used to reporting, and the several medium and small companies, we still see that they lack understanding and clarity. There's sustainability and other very smart words sometimes frighten people, but little by little, step by step, we see that people become more aware and that it is not a rocket science. People understand themselves that they can achieve progress in their daily activities. They can do better with every step they take. And letter E is very important in our environmental policies, but I am happy that we also focus a lot on the social dimension and governance. So the businesses are taking steps. They do understand that certain directives are in line, that they will soon be introduced and adopted, but they will learn everything little by little. Thank you. Thank you. We have Eivile. She's online. And since it was there was a need to mobilize those private funding, I have a question whether companies are looking for green finances. Thank you for the discussion and for the invitation to participate. I'll speak more extensively on what the role of the financial sector in greening policies. Brussels has decided that financial markets and banks to make responsible for greening.
Norės pinigų, bet ne žaliem projektam ar tikslams. Tai visa tai yra pavesta finansų sistemai.
Financial system will have to deal with all the problems. We do face with major challenges. Greening remains our priority, irrespective whether there is a COVID pandemic or war in Ukraine. So we are only strengthened by those challenges. So what are we doing now? We are still working towards environmental and green issues because we have much clearer understanding and parameters. Therefore, we are now developing a measurement system as to how to measure the transition of businesses towards a green economy, how to quantify them, how to include them into bank risk assessment models, and how to turn everything into real money. So we have 4 projects. One of such projects is we have asked the Hydrometeorology Service to provide us with a map of Lithuania. The map shows which regions are more susceptible to droughts or floodings or some other natural disasters. So, for example, if someone decides to take credit, someone working in the agriculture will decide to take a credit, and this agricultural farm is, let's say, in the area that is susceptible to droughts, most probably the conditions for the credit would be much stricter. The most interesting thing that
organizuojame
the financial sector of the Baltic states
tiekėjai kvalifikuoti padarytų
is
CO2
organizing a tender for, let's say, so that we could have the CO2 calculation scheme. We have to make sure that we know how to calculate our CO2 emissions and what we should do in order to reduce those CO2 emissions. Now,
kredito įstaigose ir ne tik, tiesą sakant, ir iš investicinių fondų, pensijų fondų sulaukti investicijų. Tai visų pirma, kažkuriuo momentu pasidarys brangiau skolintis tiems verslams.
We do understand that businesses will find it more difficult to take credits if they are not sustainable. In the longer term, unsustainable businesses will not be able to take loans from banks. So this period of carrot is already coming to an end, and if they do not make changes, if they do not undertake to implement green transition, this period will end and they will no longer receive any credits. The changes are truly huge, but small and medium businesses do not have enough financial resources and competences to be able to understand what they have to do and what they have to contact. Therefore, we work with public authorities and various institutions so that they could consult small and medium businesses. Also, we have to ensure that farmers also modernize their equipment. We know that this will be painful, but this will have to be done. Thank you, Ardvile. I'm very happy to hear that there are some very specific projects that will bring some benefit. But now let me bring us back towards that poll survey that I have just placed. I believe everyone understands that it is important to act. But we also see that there's still quite a lot of uncertainty, and majority of you say that some of the concepts have not been clearly defined. So I'll use my grandmother as a litmus test to see whether she understands everything. That if she understands, then everyone will understand. Now, the survey has also shown that you are not also satisfied with the speed that everything is taking place. Now, another question that goes to you is the challenges that we face in this green transformation. I have a question to the representative of the Innovation Agency. She knows the Lithuanian technological potential, and the technologies will play a major role in the future. So what is this technological potential in Lithuania? Well, the potential is huge, but it depends whether the potential will be used to the fullest extent or whether it will be left behind. So whether we will have substantial investment into technologies, or whether we failed to do that. There are several sectors that are frontrunners in this respect. For example, laser technologies, optics sector, robotics sector, although very small but very productive. But let me return to the challenges that we have mentioned previously. The European Commission has provided for 4 steps. A recycling economy, we are far away from circular economy. So the European Commission has 4 steps, 2 for increasing, 2 for reducing. So to reduce consumption and production, to reduce waste, increase secondary use of materials, and increase competitiveness. When we talk about production, we usually have in mind increase of production. So this is a challenge, how to use less raw materials, sell more, and earn more. Industry in Lithuania accounts for 1/5 of Lithuanian economy. And the major employer in Lithuania is industry, therefore we should not forget their challenges. Now, when referring to the finances, what we do see that this is missing is that there is no initiative for the front runners. We have very many financial measures for those who try to catch up, but the carrot is not a subsidy, the carrot is not a loan, it's not a prize for someone who has done it. So I think that we should incentivize the companies and the market participants that introduce, let's say, certain innovations without waiting for funding. So therefore, we should take a look from the perspective of the market. We had a micro discussion with my colleague. So, well, in fact, I am truly happy that there will be 1 billion loans for those who develop innovations. Lithuanian banks are rather conservative ones, and they are not eager to provide loans to innovations because they are treated as very risky loans. What else could be done? Well, I think that we should encourage private capital to get more interested in innovations. During the visit to Denmark in Odense, in the robotics conference, some 10 to 15 years ago, there was a breakthrough in Denmark when those companies took interest and got engaged into those newest technologies. I don't know whether I have answered the question.
Well, you were very authentic and you were not beating about the bush. You were very straightforward and you made very good insight. All this green transformation and all eyes are on energy, and therefore I would like to give the floor to Paula, who's coming from this sector. What is going on in your area? What challenges you are facing? Well, I represent this sector, but I'm a communication consultant. But in 3 years of my employment in Litgrid, after the beginning of the war, I realized that Lithuanian companies, well, certain Lithuania's focus on the focus of Lithuanian companies of innovation paid off. Rokas Masiulis was giving interviews on different media outlets on the terminal, and Lithuania took certain important steps in energy. Lithuania had a very ambitious strategy several years ago to have zero emissions in energy. Other countries did not have this ambition. Another positive step was the definition of innovations that are needed for that. And in 2018 and 2019, we started purchasing, and now we have the entire cell system, the solar cell system that helps us to ensure safety of the supply. For example, when we have a blackout, it means that ambitious strategies for the future and for future innovation can be ensured as a preparation. This solar cell can be a very good example. When we are second in the world, we are a country and operator that has a cell for the purpose of testing on the national level, and the focus on this technology. Lithuania was awarded for that in New York. And for our renewables transformation here, this means that we can help companies and businesses test themselves. This is not a compliment to Litgrid, but this is an example of how to attract businesses. War actually activated certain areas such as energy, green energy, and this is our future because we are unique. There's no other country around us where wind and sun do not coincide, so you can plan your investments into sun and wind, and sometimes when we have the access, we can put this into different cells. And in today's discussion, I believe that the public sector can make a very important role here. As a citizen, I'm very happy that today we're speaking about ESG because the topic of sustainability has been discussed for a very long time. We have the European directive, and from November last year, you can see so many companies looking for ESG specialists. So we are at the breaking point. I want to say that having all these plans that were discussed by the Vice Minister, it is important for us to promote innovations in state companies as well. Because testing some innovations can also help us to promote or contribute to our innovations and to the positive changes. And the public sphere is a very helpful way to move forward. I think that we have to help people and let them experiment and invest into innovations and to increase this part in the overall investment package. Thank you very much. I want to look at you and thank you because you expressed the need to discuss and not to consider this as something that should be taken for granted. Some time ago, we had a similar discussion with specialists. During the discussions, many interesting things can be found. Mindaugai, please don't get offended. I think we have still some problems with finances. Something needs to be done here. But I will ask Grete to name something, to name the leaders. You are working with this every day by forming the politics. As I said, innovation into technologies is one of the basic elements. And now let me move to the last question to the audience. The second part, or the second thematic panel of our today's discussion is the future fintech sector. We also heard the best practice examples from Paule. I think that we should have a good value proposal on what can be done here. So my question is whether all these green transformation can translate into Lithuania's competitiveness. It means that foreign companies would be attracted here in Lithuania to establish centers to implement transformation projects. So I want one more round with my panelists. I'm looking at Thomas. Foreign investment is very good. We have foreign companies. You discuss with those companies. How can we motivate those foreign companies so that green transformation can become the competitive factor? I think that the answer is simple. The value can be seen when you start discussing it. First of all, you have to wait for some time and then to clarify this topic to everybody else so that it is not that scary. And I believe that we will have motivation then. Thank you, Paulo. What are the lessons learned that can be used in other industries, well, based on what you have seen? Well, this is a very good question. I think that one of the main things is the awareness of all the ecosystem that innovation should be planned in advance, and we're not looking around, and we're focusing on all this, and we also focus on education, because sustainability and green transformation is not a thing of one department. These are engineering things, involvement of the entire team, so we have to agree on clear rules and understand that this is our joint venture. The more education and awareness we have in this area, the more young people we have working here who are not necessarily top CEOs, but who are working in the area, the more success we'll be able to have. Evile, how can you mobilize the banks for the end result? Actually, we cannot lag behind, and we invite public institutions to use this opportunity, because greening is our opportunity to frog. We should not look for best practices from other countries coming, or consultants coming and helping us. I think that those who are first will succeed finally. Irina, do you think we will succeed? Yes, we will. Yes, we will, because we have companies that create technologies, and we have businessmen, entrepreneurs who create new business models. For example, do you know that for example, a tire of a vehicle can be used from 4 to 5 times, so it can be reused, recycled. We can have transport migration centers for recycling and reusing the tires. For example, in terms of a plane, the tire can be reused 10 times. So it is important to identify the needed technologies on time and help them to go mainstream because the competition will be fierce. Well, it is evident that green transformation it must become the competitive advantage of Lithuania. Greta, how would you react? Do you buy this? Yes, I do. Yes, yes, it must. We're working for that. But the proportionality principles is also important here, because some countries find some things easy to be implemented. So we want to have this principle in business as well. I think that greening is economically effective and economically necessary. Thank you, dear panelists. I also thank the audience for the contribution. I think that we have clarified some of the factors and some of the notions. Thank you very much. Thank you for this dynamic discussion. It was a really fun exercise, and all those messages have become clear to us. Speaking about awareness of politicians and strategies, this is about us politicians. Sometimes it seems that we have been discussing this for ages, and well, I remember my work in the European Parliament. I remember those directives on packaging, on plastic packaging. These are the challenges. In our Committee on European Affairs, so when we are preparing a position or a mandate for the position of the European Union, we see that the debate between parliamentarians is not very hot because we trust the government. And we trust the position of social partners. I do not know whether this is an advantage or disadvantage. This is an open question. But I believe that all those concepts seem to be a buzzword, or the word that can not be understood by general public. It seems that general public believes that it is too expensive and that businesses think that they need more creativity to achieve that. And I believe that we have to have more best practices and more examples that can be followed. I think we also lack some incentives and initiatives in the sector itself. I want to give the floor to Linas Slušnys, my colleague. The floor is yours. Well, it is an honor for me. When you are in a certain conference, you really feel pleasure. But I want to give you an example from my experience. Well, I'm actually using diesel for my vehicle. And my friend has left me a Model X Tesla. I used it for 3 weeks. Well, I went to Klaipėda with the diesel car, But with Model X, it took me shorter. It took me 5 hours to drive to Klaipėda. To fuel this car. It took me 45 minutes to fuel this car. But my friend only took 2 hours to fuel his car. And it seems that these are very beautiful words. And I'm really happy that I have my diesel run car. And having this electric car was absolutely discouraging for me, because I have this experience of 3 weeks. But how can we convince people? We have to change this. We're not speaking about excise duties here. This is the issue of comfort. When you have 4 children running around your car for 2 hours, this is a problem, actually. Do you have a recipe for changing the opinion of Linas? Well, you had to charge your car before leaving to Klaipėda. Well, actually, the car was charged. Vaida would like to give a recipe. Well, actually, the government knows the problem. So this is the gap between the demand and supply. Now, the government has planned the investment into infrastructure, and it has made a call for companies to install charging stations for households and in different spaces. And we already have a map with all planned charging stations to be installed. So this is a process, actually. And finally, we will have more charging stations on the route that you are driving, and I hope that we will finally manage to address and to resolve this issue, and in a few years' time you will really be happy driving your friend's electric car. Erika. Well, I would like to invite you to invest into new batteries. Well, this is a food for thought for all of us, Linai.
Taip, dar tuomet
Marius Matijošaitis.
Ačiū labai. Taip, Europos reikalų komiteto vicepirmininkas Marius.
I'm the deputy chair of the Committee on European Affairs. When it comes to your remark on developing batteries, let me mention the company titled Elinta, one of the best companies for batteries for cars and other component parts. My question is a bit on the philosophical note, and maybe not very convenient one. When we talk about green transformation, how can we ensure that all green transformation is truly green? Because we know that internet cables under the Atlantic also produce some heat effect. All those factories that produce electric cars also heat our environment. I remember myself being in one example from Norway, when Chinese TikTok enterprise established a database, and this database demanded for more electricity than the huge industrial factory. And if that TikTok Chinese enterprise was established in that area, the factory had no electricity for its operations. So that's why we have to know everything about the processes. So in the short term, we do understand the global warming. We see some examples, some very bad examples in various parts of the world. So we see the repercussions on the people in various territories, especially in the south. But nevertheless, green transformation in the short term generates the problem itself, because as we take one step forward, we take at the same time a few steps back. So being professionals of green transformation, what do you think about the aspect of when we transform ourselves, we develop some other additional problem? Well, we are thinking of this problem on a daily basis, but it is very important for us to see the balance. How much footprint and emissions we generate without doing nothing. So first and foremost, we have to eliminate major polluters and to invest into microprocessors, which need much less energy. So the only way out is to invest into new technologies that would enable savings in the production process itself. You also touched upon a very important issue with regard to data. Majority of data of the European Union are not in the databases in the European Union. So maybe this is an important aspect that should be taken account of. So we have to think of the security of our data. Anyone else to respond or to react or to comment? To respond to that question, well, I believe that was a brainwashing. As I have mentioned, we are trying to identify some measuring principles, because we will have an Excel table and the companies will have to fill the table in saying what way emissions. So every company will have to know its emissions, just like every person knows the group of its blood. So that's the way we are taking. Madam Guoda Burokienė from the Committee on European Affairs. I do welcome the conference. But you've just mentioned that the EU member states have taken the green transition path. But let's look at the nearest future. The European Union becomes green while the rest of the world remains a polluting one. So what shall we do? We know that African countries, India, and other countries are not that fast as the European Union. In meetings with parliamentarians from all over the world, we see that what we consider as a norm, they treat it
pas juos tai yra ne didžiausia problema, o didžiausia naujas kažkoks dalykas. Pas mus yra
as a novelty. It is a norm for us to look for the greenest way. While they believe that the things we have undertaken and the innovations that we have adopted are the things from the science fiction.
Jau čia visiškai. Tai pas juos čia yra super duper naujiena. Arba ant pastatų statyti elektrinės.
While beekeeping on the roofs is quite a common thing in our countries, while in other countries this might seem an innovation. So how can we adjust the green transition of the entire world? How can we harmonize? Erika, can you answer the question? I believe through value chains. Majority of them develop and produce components for the European Union. As far as I know, it is not only the European Union is taking the green transition path. The same is being done in the United States of America. And they reduce certain tax incentives.
Tai va, tai jie turi kitą paskatų sistemą.
The incentive system in those countries is different, in the US is different, so we are not alone. So now when it comes to value change, we have to collect the certificates of all metals and resources. The same will have to be done by producers in the future, and only then we will be able to achieve that. Other countries will opt for greener technologies. We can't impose our standards on other countries, but I believe that our practices will make them change. I believe that the world is turning is like a spiral, so something that was fashionable here in this part of the world was not fashionable in the other part of the world. Thank you. Now let me declare the end of this session. I know that we could go on for a long time, but thank you for sharing your insights and your experience. But let us move to the second session, which is called The Future of the Fintech Sector and Its Challenges in the Changing World, Slowing Economy, Difficulty in Attracting Investment, Increasing Regulation. The moderator of the session is Ms. Lina Žemaitytė-Kirkman, head of ROCPIT, a Center for Financial Technology and Sustainable Innovation. Thank you very much. Thank you for a very dynamic moderation of the previous session, but I promise we will try to keep our discussion in time, and I hope that you will be able to go home at the time that you have planned. Now, we will be talking about the fintech sector, but before I introduce the panelists, I'd like to give the floor to Lukas Jakubonis, who is the head of the Center for Financial Market Development of the Bank of Lithuania, to open the debate. Good afternoon. I am Lukas Jakubonis. You were very fast, Lina, indeed, and I wonder whether I have to maintain the same speed, or shall I speak slower? I guess I'll speak slower. I was asked to speak for 5 minutes, so I believe that I will speak for 6 minutes. Thank you for inviting me. Distinguished members of the Seimas, ministers, guests, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to show you the situation in the financial market sector and the challenges that the Bank of Lithuania faces. We have to fulfill 2 roles as the bank, and we have to ensure a healthy balance between those 2 roles. The Bank of Lithuania is currently a strict but at the same time a loving regulator. Strict and loving, strict but loving means that we are trying to carry out oversight of the market participants, but at the same time we want to ensure development of this market. When it comes to being strict, we are highly focused on the quality of the financial market services. We want to achieve the level when licensed in Lithuania would mean the standard, the top standard. We want to achieve the same sentiment we have when we talk about some, let's say, Swedish watches and German cars. So we don't want to use a stick, but rather to provide a carrot. So that's why we give a lot of attention to the financial sector. We are trying to help the financial market participants to eliminate the obstacles that they have. We try to consult them on various both national and EU-level matters. But it should not be forgotten that with all the benefits of the financial market, there are some costs, while costs translate into various risks that are brought by financial market participants. Those risks can materialize, and they might bring huge damage both to the banking sector and to the reputation of Lithuania. Well, when it comes to the loving regulator, the Bank of Lithuania cooperates with its strategic partners, Invest Lithuania, Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Office of the President of the Republic of Lithuania. So we bring our efforts together and we look for contacts to meet with new market entrants and to present Lithuania as a country in which those new market participants can develop their businesses. Well, I forgot to show you the slides. So this was the slide related to how strict we are. As I have mentioned, when it comes to fintech risks, the Lithuanian fintech sector is mostly related to payment services. The slide shows that those risks are real. We receive complaints from consumers, and those complaints, majority of those complaints, are related to payment services. To save the time, I'll move on to another slide, which speaks about the bank as a loving regulator. This shows the development of the financial market. Most of you have already seen the slide. For some of you, the slide will be quite new. On the right side of the slide, you see some new data. This part represents the number of entities that contact the Bank of Lithuania, and this shows whether Lithuania is an attractive country for achieving licenses, and whether we can provide the cutting edge for new market entrants. This is the statistics from yesterday. We see that the interest is still very big. Now, when it comes to new technologies, which is the topic of this discussion, we currently hear a lot about artificial intelligence and developing artificial intelligence. Well, I am happy that the strategy for Lithuania is already in its final stages of preparations, and we see that we have to ensure that this huge leap that has been made by artificial intelligence is integrated into the strategy for Lithuania. I believe that we have the place where the financial sector meets artificial intelligence. We have a huge potential of IT talents. We have a lot of fintech experts. We have all the know-how for developing innovative financial services. Moreover, we also have the sector and jurisdiction that provides financial services to 1 out of 10 EU citizen, which is an achievement for Lithuania. On the positive note, the worst thing that could be done with the cutting-edge technologies is to prematurely regulate them and to prevent them from developing. Well, the cost and benefit principle is also very applicable here. We should not forget the risks and the Bank of Lithuania is responsible for managing those risks. And to conclude, artificial intelligence is the area that I try to use in my daily working routine, and we now have a very good tool in the financial world. I'm not going to advertise it. You will Google it and you'll find it. And, you know, if you search for the best country for fintech license in the European Union, you will see that the Google will generate answers. The name of our country. Here you see the correspondence, my correspondence with artificial intelligence. And the last thought that I wanted to express to you is that the Bank of Lithuania is neutral with regard to technologies and to financial institutions. In as far as we do not care what measures are being used. We only care about the results. And I hope that the Bank of Lithuania will always remain strict, but at the same time a loving regulator. Thank you. Thank you, Lucas, for your presentation. We have representatives from the fintech sector, so we will ask whether they feel the love that you have just mentioned. So, I wonder, by the way, I wonder what answer would artificial intelligence give if it had, let's say, the data from 2021. Now, let me introduce the panelists of this panel. We have Ms. Ekaterina Govina, partner at Response Legal, Mr. Mikalajūnas, COE and board member of SME Finance. We also have Liudas Kanapienė, CEO of Ondato, and Ms. Gintarė Mačiulienė, head of technology sector team, and Vaiva Mulė. The topic of our today's panel is the future of the fintech sector and the challenges in the changing world. But in order to be able to speak about future, we have to talk about the past. So we'll have a very short course on how fintech appeared in Lithuania. Ekaterina, I will start from you because you were working in that sector at that time. So you were working in the Bank of Lithuania. So can you tell me why the direction has been chosen by the Bank of Lithuania at that time and how everything was going on? Thank you very much. Since I'm the first panelist to open the panel, I'd like to thank the Committee on European Affairs of the Seimas and Ms. Radvilė Morkūnaitė-Mikulėnienė personally for the invitation to participate here. When I received an invitation, I thought that something bad has happened because, usually the Seimas, the Lithuanian Parliament, talks to the fintech sector only when something bad happens, only when, let's say, there are some bankrupt cases in the sector. And, well, I found it rather strange that the Seimas wanted to talk about the prospects of the fintech sector and challenges it is facing currently. Now, Lithuania has been on this fintech road since 2015, so it's been on this road for 8 years now. There were quite a few important factors that helped us to achieve. So the first factor was the Brexit. So for some it was a misfortune, while for Lithuania it was a lucky opportunity to get into the continental Europe. We were also very happy about the fintech global development, which allowed Lithuania to enter this wave. Well, Lithuania had its own objectives, and the first objective was to encourage our local financial sector. And 8 years ago, you remember that our financial sector was not the one to be boasted about innovations. So, Now, the cards that you can pay without contacts were rather new things. 8 years ago, mobile payments were also something very new or unheard of at that time. All of my finances are in this small equipment. I use it for investing, for saving, and so on. I don't have a wallet with myself. So the first objective was to encourage our local market sector to be more active in investing in innovations and to employ the financial technologies. So first, we looked at it from the competitive threats. Well, I'm not going to mention the bank that has come to Lithuania and made our banks more active. Maybe you remember that we had to pay for the incoming payments. I remember that we had to pay 1.20 lira, Lithuanian previous currency, in order to receive the money, to receive the payment. So that was our objective, to make the local financial markets more active, so that they could provide more opportunities and choice for our consumers. We do have certain problems with funding for business and funding for small and medium enterprises and other things, but the fact is clear. Our financial sector has become very good. It offers very good services. So this means that we have achieved our objective. Thank you very much for providing us with very concrete, specific examples, because we sometimes forget the things that happened in the past. As consumers, we believe benefited from that. But I have a question to Ms. Gintarė Bačiulienė. We benefited from this competition, but what has Lithuania and the financial sector benefited?
Thank you for the question. When I was thinking about this discussion, I had 3 points. Well, the national or the state progress plan, and in this plan, the fintech sector, based on technologies and innovation, and creates added value jobs. And in this period, the sector has been developing steadily. In 2022, this sector paid 203 million euro. It employs 7,000 employers. This is a very important segment in the national perspective, in terms of the national perspective. So the second segment is that we all win here as consumers, as companies and individuals. And these are beneficial solutions that can be proposed by different fintech companies. And the fintech sector was shaken to some point and the old providers have become more consumer-oriented. In Lithuania, licensed fintech companies serve 25,000 consumers in the EU. So this is a very wide geography of clients and export. On my part, I want to say that we see that the fintech sector is one of the few sectors that had helped to strengthen or improve Lithuania's awareness about Lithuania around the world. The fintech sector increased in importance. It is being discussed and debated on in different contexts, but Lithuania is seen as a fintech leader in the region, in the European Union. And this raised awareness about Lithuania, and last year Lithuania was mentioned over 400 times in the context of fintech in different media. So this shows the public approach and the openness of society to that. And the benefit is multifaceted, and it is difficult to measure sometimes. But in terms of the image of Lithuania and improving the image of Lithuania, we travel abroad and we communicate with different companies, and we say that when you say that I'm from Lithuania in fintech, everybody knows where Lithuania is. And they say, well, we know about Lithuania, and these people have a certain desire to have certain connections. You spoke about Lithuania's awareness about Lithuania and about fintech as the reasons to attract investors to Lithuania. What makes Lithuania attractive to investors? Well, for investors or fintech investors? Well, for fintech investors. Well, we had this discussion with the Bank of Lithuania. Well, Lithuania's image has been changing with the maturity of the market and the complementation of some of the segments, but certain aspects can be mentioned here. One of them is innovative regulator, a strict regulator, a loving one. But when we compare it to other regulators, future visions to new technologies and innovation, this is a very real thing on the global scale and the EU scale. And we stress that very often. We, as the regulator of this sphere, is developing with fintech on the same base. And the possibility to debate on that and to discuss on that with the public sector and the regulator, and to be informed on different plans and strategies is advantageous to our country. And this helps us to find common points of moving forward. And this actually increases the trust, and it enables us to create this positive context despite different challenges that we face and different other sectors face. Well, the importance of regulators is really great in that, and I hope that this will be so in the future as well. Well, can I have the floor? I just wanted to add well, for example, the value proposal of Lithuania. Payment companies have one value proposal, and other companies have the other. Global banks could be offered that. We had over 50 meetings with different foreign banks last year. If you want to create a digital bank today, Lithuania is the best version or the best country to establish an e-bank, because in Lithuania you can find everything what is needed for a digital bank. transaction, monitoring, everything is in place in Lithuania. All you have to have is money. Other economies do not have this or do not have this to the full extent and are lagging behind. So digitalization is our advantage. I now want to speak about the current situation. The fintech strategy was a success story, but I want to give the floor to Vaida. Fintech guidelines or strategy was prepared by you. Can you share the vision of the strategy in the sector of fintech? I know that there are guidelines for 5 years. What is the vision of this sector? Well, I'll try to put emphasis on the main points. Previously, we had proposals being prepared by the institutions, and now we have the guidelines being prepared together with the market. So today, it's not the institutions that instruct something, but we have the guidelines that are prepared in cooperation with the partners. So in this way, we're working to achieve the best result. We want to have Lithuania high value added fintech center or hub. And our motto is scale fintech with Lithuania. Previously, we looked at the number of companies as a quality factor. But now the quantity is being measured in a different way in terms of employees, in terms of services provided, in terms of GDP created by this sector in Lithuania. So these parameters are more reflecting the majority of these companies fail to grow. So we have to be the jurisdiction that would help companies to grow and to export a wide variety of services, making Lithuania an attractive country for companies. Well, attraction and growth in Lithuania will be focused into innovative solutions that we're trying to attract. We are speaking about a very fast changing sector, and it is difficult to predict what might happen in 5 or 10 years. But we might also look at what is innovative and what is needed, and it makes us easier to focus on the companies that we want to attract. Speaking about the main points of the guidelines, we want to achieve the competitiveness of our companies so that they can act on the EU level and make competitiveness not only on the national level but also on the EU level, and to provide services on a wider level. The second aspect is innovation. Artificial intelligence was not involved in drafting our guidelines, but our guidelines include artificial intelligence. We want to give the possibilities for the fintech companies to create new products and new services, and this is a very high risk. And we want to make companies willing to take this risk and to invest into innovation. colleague from the Innovation Agency will agree with me that we have certain funds that are earmarked for artificial intelligence. But we want to have this connection with the fintech sector. In our guidelines, we want to promote cooperation between different agencies and have the innovation agency established similar to one of investing in Lithuania. Another point is integrity. There is some clash between traditional companies and new fintech companies, but these companies face very similar challenges in some areas. For example, sustainable development, sustainable financing, cybersecurity, and we want to promote cooperation and information exchange so that the processes that are needed for by all the companies become more effective, and also keeping Lithuania the most competitive country. So this is a certain standard that reflects Lithuania. And when we speak about fintech here, it is important to note that fintech comprises two parts, financial sector and technological sector. And we have companies that are licensed in technologies or in finance. And we have to focus on both types of companies because they are crucial for our ecosystem. Technological companies, for example, have a great influence on export. But in terms of licensed companies, these find more space in the European Union. Thank you, Vaida. Well, you finished up with the export, and now we have business representatives, both licensed and unlicensed. Today's topic is the changing of the challenges of the changing world, slowing economy, difficulty in attracting investment, increasing regulation, and export actually is an important factor here. I would like to ask Liudas, what is your experience in this area? What help is needed for decision makers here? Thank you for your invitation to participate in this discussion and for this great introduction into the future. So first of all, this sector needs clarity about our future. Guidelines, for example, they bring some clarity, but historically, the current leadership and the clear responsibility of institutions forms a certain definition of the sector and our way forward. While speaking about the current guidelines, I had the opportunity to see them. In my mind, they are quite sufficient to make some policy around this. The Bank of Lithuania has translated its position some time before, but I lack the instruments of financing for supervisory institutions, not only the Bank of Lithuania, but also the special investigation services. We have to implement not only the requirements, but also the measures that would help to implement them. If we want some quality indicators, we have to increase the funding for the institutions that can supervise those entities in a quality way. Sometimes limiting ourselves to certain reparation plans, but sometimes the fines are being issued. The institutions themselves, unfortunately, do not feel insured here. And there's a lack here, to my mind. We need leadership to be taken by some entities or institutions. The Bank of Lithuania used to do that in the past, but we feel the lack of that now. Thank you, Liudas. I know that Vaida wanted to react. I will be brief. Well, something that has already been introduced in the guideline. Well, I'm not speaking about financial investigation service. The guidelines includes a proposal on improving this sector. The guidelines envisage the possibility of amicable agreement if, for example, some problems arise, instead of imposing sanctions. Now let us return to the same question and ask Mindaugas as a licensed representative. Well, actually, we have 3 licenses, and 2 licenses are to be on the way. We are exporting in 5 countries, and I have some practical experience of 7 years. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland. And the Netherlands. In Lithuania, we were very flexible. We had no problems here. In Latvia, it's not a fintech-friendly country. Latvia protects the banking sector, and the banking fintechs are very popular there. Estonia is a digital country. It took us 1 year to get the license, though the regulators say that it should take 6 months only. In the Netherlands, they are very friendly, and we started working in 2 weeks there. Certainly, banking sector is very strong there, and only now they're beginning to realize the advantage of fintech and the level of fintech and the situation. Well, sometimes the development of fintech is being accepted, and we were accepted easily. The 7-year period shows that the rhetoric has changed on the part of the regulator. We were the pioneers here. The market was very small. Everybody looked with suspicion at us. But when our turnover increased, we saw some lobbyistic actions and competitive restraints. For example, we had a very good cooperation with Invega, and we now have certain criteria that block a certain initiative for us. So we have certain capital requirements that are twice as large compared to the ones before. Well,
Actually, fintech companies participated 70% in the allocation of cheap money during the COVID pandemic. So, on the one hand, we really look great on the EU level, but locally, where we need more money for SMEs, we have many more limitations here. And from the strategic point of view, our income split in the Baltic countries is decreasing, and we will have only 50%, while we had 80% when we started. And this will be decreasing. But in terms of taxes, we really pay large salaries and salary-related taxes to the budget. In terms of regulators and other regulating institutions towards us, well, actually, we had to be in Spain, Poland, and other countries, but we did not do that because attraction of money became more difficult for us. And now all the money that is being used for funding SMEs come from the EU rather than from Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Thank you, Mindaugas, for a very extensive coverage of the challenges. And now I would like to give the floor to Vaiva, representing Association of the FinTech companies. What moods do you see? And what are the needs voiced by the members of your association? And as far as I hear that the FinTech sector is being slowing down. Well, first of all, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here. I will reflect on what I've heard. I've heard many positive aspects mentioned by the colleagues. Well, the rhetoric by the regulator has changed. This is very logical. Actually, there is a balance of demand and supply, but very important is not to overdo something. Investors who invest into fintech do not invest 2 million; they invest by hundreds of millions. So this is the very best part of the investors. And on the other part, in other countries, there are no so many fintech companies, and they are not regulated as much as in Lithuania. Therefore, these countries do not have the experience of regulation of fintech. And the fines and this strict regulation seems unimaginable. On the other hand, when fintechs are fined, in the eyes of a foreigner, this means that Lithuania is a country for money laundering. I very much hope we will have those amicable agreements as provided for in the guidelines. We have already one fine for the failures in the continuity of the business plan, and nobody wants to be the CEO of the fintech because this is a financial responsibility, and we have a certain disbalance here. And as Katerina has mentioned in the very beginning, what success means is when we discuss and find this common point.
We have been developing, we have become stricter, we have the plan or the guidelines, and I hope that we will have a clear regulation and the laws and legal acts will be interpreted in a clear manner. We will have the expansion of export, both of licensed and unlicensed companies in Europe and outside. We will have the international aspect, and we will be able to provide the basic information in the English language, and the regulator will love us by incentivizing the fintechs. Well, I can speak a lot on that. You have answered the question and made a conclusion on our discussion. And looking at the timetable, I would like to give the floor to all the panelists to make a short final remark, expressing your wish. If you had a magic wand, what would you do to have Lithuania a star in fintech? And to be best among competitors such as the Netherlands? Well, a small one. Young players are young, but they attract great investments, but they should not be scared. And the regulator should give a transition period for them, because it is obvious that failures might be made, or errors might be made, and those errors can be made in different areas. And the lack of human resources, there are mistakes or errors that are being made, the ones that are being made in the SMEs. And I think that young players have to be given a transition period of 3 years. This would be a consultation period without fining them. Fines actually prevents getting SWIFT codes and anything that is on the global map. Getting fines means that you would not get correspondence banking. These are some minor things that are very unhelpful to us. Thank you. You're not writing down anything. Lucas. Well, we are celebrating Europe Day today. We don't have negative aspects, but we are a country of fintech. We have great companies that have attracted great investments and that are very active on the international markets. And we should not forget that. And the current situation is that the turnover of licensed fintech participants is on the rise. And we are the quality guarantee, both in terms of technologies. Artificial intelligence is something that has been integrated into our solutions for 5 years already. And when we hear about fintech, we should be very proud of that. And we can offer our consultations in Lithuania. Thank you, Liudas. Mindaugas has given us the food for thought. I hope that we have trust, more trust. fintech sector brings risks, but well, actually, these are IT companies mostly. Well, and I hope that we have much trust and confidence, and I hope that we have this great confidence. Well, this is a very good wish. We should continue our discussions, and we can do that further on. Gintarė, I hope, well, fintech and other technology-based sectors actually grow thanks to talents. And we have great talents in Lithuania. And the number of them is growing, but not at the level that we really need now, and that will be needed in the future. And I hope that we will attract talents from abroad, that will remain open and help qualified employees come to Lithuania and create this added value. Thank you. Well, I'm pragmatic and optimistic. I think that we just have to reconcile with the fact that the licensed fintech sector will not increase, will not grow. The appetite for risk is decreasing, and we have to agree on that. We have attained good results, but the development has requires many competences. All these competences transform into very good companies, such as of Ludas, Ondato. The startup and Analyze that I represent, the company on monitoring money laundering. These are the companies that are not risky to our country. On the contrary, they help the fintech and the financial sector to transform their risk management models. I hope that we stop dreaming about growing in the same pace that we used to. I think we should change the orientation towards the export. So this is my wish. Thank you very much.
I guess that was the advertisement for the Analyze. I'm very down to earth. But in order to ensure that everything that is included in the plan is implemented, well, you see that the ecosystem is very strong indeed, and everyone knows each other very well, and we love fun discussions. But I have a request to the members of the Seimas. I hope that they will allow the financial institutions to share information on financial crimes. I think that the law, respective law, has not been adopted yet. If you want to be clean without frauds, you have to enable the companies, because now they are not able to do this. And I believe that we, as the ecosystem, will do everything we can by talking to each other, by consulting, and I hope this is a positive thing. Thank you. Thank you. Vaiva, the floor is yours. Let me look into the future and to bring this fintech discussion in line with the previous discussion on green transformation. I believe that the financial technology can help our economy to transform and fill in the gap related to financial resources. This gap will increase even further when we update our national plan. Previously, the financial sector was working in a community. Everyone knew each other. And they knew who was building a house or who was purchasing a shop. But now they will have to work based on the content. And here in Lithuania, we have some examples where fintech companies finance greening. So what would we invest in order to have a greener economy? Instinctively, we would answer we should invest into green projects, but we have to look at the sectors such as agriculture and construction sector. These are the most polluting sectors, and if we do not make those sectors green, we will not achieve any change. Technological companies can aggregate the data, look at them from different perspectives, and provide them for us and for others to be able to adopt the decisions. The financial sector companies should be able to assess such efforts, because it is very risky to invest into those green projects or greening projects, because the investment might not pay off. Therefore, it is important for them to have the know-how and help the economy become greener. So we should not paint the sector in black colors. So I'm painting the sector in green colors. Thank you very much indeed. It seems that I failed to fulfill my promise with regard to the timing, but the discussion was very interesting. Everyone wanted to have their say. And I'll conclude with the things that Lucas mentioned at the very beginning. The bank. He said that the bank is a strict but a loving regulator. But, well, thank you very much, and I give the floor to Radvilė. Give a round of applause to Lina for a very precise introduction of the matter to all of you. Now, when it comes to the initiatives, legislative initiatives, Jurgis Razma, who is the most experienced member of the Seimas, turned an attentive ear to that. So we will commit him. We will commit him friendly to check what has stuck in the legislative process. But I had to listen more attentively to this panel than to the previous one. So I learned a lot. Well, the colleagues from the Budget and Finance Committee have left the discussion already, but they heard your talks. They are aware of the fact that you are meeting on a more regular basis and not only on those festive occasions as today. But as it has been said, we should take a realistic approach. There is a dialogue that is going on between the sector participants. We should take account of the guidelines that would help maintain this beauty, as it was said, in the context of the European Union. We have to ensure that we look good not only in statistical tables, but also that we become an attractive sector for other countries. So I'll finish at that. I love this loving and this love and strict regulator idea. I thank you for being here. I thank you, the Committee on European Affairs, for organizing this event, and have a good day.